Okay, so Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Welcome everyone. Inshallah, you guys had time to reflect on what we read over the week. Because I think last week's was pretty intense or fruitful session, at least for me. So I'll just start with a little summary and I will open up the floor for any reflections, and then we'll start reading the result and summary of the third fundamental point. Again, we are reading the 29th word, which is about angels, the immortality of spirit, and the resurrection. And the second aim specifically has been about resurrection. So last week we started reading the third matter, which consisted of 6 comparisons. So I know it may sound like a lot of different headings and a lot of things going on, but one way that I liked how Dr. Yamina said to kind of conceptualize this last part we read was these comparisons are all mysteries that we are using to better understand the unseen. So each of the comparisons that Imam Nursi gave us are like gates or doors, or she also used the word telescope, for example, that we can look into and have a better understanding in our heart to accept the unseen. Because when we are talking about angels or immortality or resurrection, these are kinds of the more fundamental principles that we really have to become convinced of and have yaqeen of. So just a quick overview of some of the comparisons. I want to highlight that the comparisons we looked at make things closer to us, and they make it easier for our hearts to accept the unseen. So another highlight of that is we're not using reason or appealing to intellect, but we're trying to make sure that our hearts and feelings are satisfied with the claims that we're reading in the divine guidance. So one of the things we read was divine power is relational. So an example like sunlight reflecting on all the drops of water at the same time shows me that if that's something that I can see in my own life, I can make a connection and understand that divine power can act on everything at the same time with that same kind of ease. So this is how we're approaching these comparisons, inshallah. And if you guys have any questions or comments, please feel free to either raise your hand or write it in the chat. Another thing that we want to underline, not just for this past week, but the overall goal of the halaqah, inshallah, is to make sure that Iman is what we live by and is not just something that we claim. So the kind of reflection and practice that we're trying to gain through the reading and through Imam Nursi's kind of like reflections is to see how we can incorporate into our own practice this sort of tafakkur, this sort of pondering over creation and divine guidance at the same time, inshallah. Another thing that we looked at in the second and third comparison was that we see a lot of miracles of power that we usually take for granted. We, for example, talked about how we eat a lot of something, but we don't become that thing, for example, or how there is very intricate and huge balance in the creation around us, and disturbing the balance takes only a particle, but to keep that sort of balance requires absolute power because everything is interrelated. And in that absolute power, and leading us up to the sixth comparison was this idea of obedience. And, going back to the watermelon, we were thinking of, how every watermelon seed wants to be a watermelon. It has an inclination to become a watermelon. It has the potential to become a watermelon. It's what it's created to be. And so everything that we are witnessing around us is showing us this obedience to the command of God, and the mystery of kun fayakun. So we had left off with the idea that, this is something that we really need to reflect on. And I'll read this last part of the sixth comparison just because it's pretty lovely. I like this part. Thus, the obedience of the whole universe to the divine command be, kun, is the same as that of a particle. The obedience of the whole universe to the divine command be is the same as that of a particle, which is like a single soldier, contained all together in the obedience and conformity of contingent beings to the pre-eternal command of be, proceeding from the pre-eternal will, are inclination, need, desire, and attraction, which are also manifestations of divine will. And I ended with this prayer and reflection that our goal, inshallah, is to have conscious obedience, and not just passively letting things happen to us. And at the end of the halaqah last week, we were talking about Prophet Yusuf's story, alayhi salam. And I thought that really touched a lot of people, myself included. We saw that in different stages of his, life, that the story we're getting from the Quran shows him as consciously obedient and very active. So we need to also make sure that we are being as actively participant, or like actively participating in our own lives, in witnessing, in confirming, inshallah, and looking to divine guidance to better ourselves in that regard. I will stop there. So today we'll read the result and summary of the third fundamental point, which we have been reading for almost 2 months, I think, the third fundamental point. So before I start reading, would anyone like to share any reflections? I know that we had some reflections in the WhatsApp group. Anything that stayed with you? Any comments on the sixth comparison, on the mystery of obedience, are welcome at this point, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Just to add to your summary, Nur Banu, the second matter, this is the third matter. The second matter, and all this is at this point about finding evidences that divine power is more than capable of creating the resurrection. And this is, of course, for us to be able to witness and to have the satisfaction and the tranquility of certainty of witnessing, of observing, of experiencing the comprehensiveness of divine power here and now. And so in the second matter, the emphasis was on the universe or the creation, the world, has two faces. This is very an important tool. Sometimes he says three because he's including the one that looks to Akhirah. But if we get the second, it already looks to Akhirah. And so this is a very important way to engage with the world, that there are two aspects to the world. One looks to the external, what we see, and what is at the same time transient and passing and perishing. And the other one, at the same time, looks to the creator, looks to, the first one is called mulk, terminology from the Quran. The second one is the malakut, that looks to the angelic world, ties into the first part about the angel and the human spirit, because this part is what the human spirit is going to engage and going to feed on. And so this part, the malakut, looks to the creator, looks to the beautiful names. In the beginning, before we know the creator and the beautiful names, it looks to meaning, to purpose, to order, to everything that it makes sense and that we seek in order to have a meaningful, purposeful life. So here in the third matter, we're already looking at the world from the Malakut side. The Malakut side, which he gave an example of the mirror. The mirror has the back side and the side that is reflective. So the Malakut is the one that we look into and see everything reflected in. And here in the Malakut, we are going to see the world of the unseen, the manifestation, a reflection of the names of God and everything that pertains to the meaning and purpose of life. And that's what the Quran, we are taught to pay attention to in the Quran. Once we start perceiving the world in this way, we'll start perceiving ourselves in this way, then our interaction, relationship, everything else will start transforming and changing accordingly. And the back side of the mirror is what we call reality, what we are usually stuck in. So this is a huge breakthrough if we realize how important this is. It is tied up in the Quran with the concept of ayah, telling us that they are all ayat. Ayah means it is a signpost. If something is a signpost, we don't get stuck in it. We always want to, we want to know what it is pointing to. So this is a very important point. And then in the third matter, he's telling us that this divine power, the divine power that is not like all the names of God, is not, that pertains to the Malakut side of everything. The true, the real, lasting, meaningful side of everything, where there are no opposites, because everything is wisdom, is beautiful, is. In this side, he's telling us now the focus is on divine power, since it is the main name when it pertains to creation and recreating and resurrection, as far as we're concerned. So he's saying divine powers relation is according to laws. It means it's قانوني. It acts according to laws in the sense that we see it. This is how we are going to witness divine power in the world. We see it working according to laws. And in order to make this more accessible to us, he's giving us all these 6, the transparency, as you mentioned, Nurbanu, that everything like the sea, all the water is reflects the sun. And then there is the second one, which is, it says reciprocity, but I would say more like responsiveness, because the original word is muqabala. It's not reciprocity, really. It's more responsiveness, because in the first one, it's everything is created. The malakut side of everything has this transparency. Its nature is that it can reflect the sunlight. It means here the sunlight is just a metaphor. It can reflect all the beautiful names of God. This is because it is creation, because it is created. So it is easier for us to understand what's going on. And the second one is, he says, if there is someone with a candle at the center, then everyone around that candle that's holding a mirror will get the same reflection. And of course, if the person is not holding a mirror, or is holding a mirror but not looking at the candle, it's not going to respond. So here, this only looks to human beings because we have free will and we can disobey. We can choose to not be responsive to, well, we can choose in a limited way. We can choose to not get older or something like that. But there are some aspects of our life that are left to our free will, but everything else is responsive to the light, responsive to divine power. It means not only it is transparent and reflective, but it's also directly receiving it. And then we had the balance, which means big or small makes no difference for divine power. And it is also, so these are all to tell us the same thing, how divine power has access to everything and without any obstacle, without any effort. It is effortless because it is all encompassing, because it is all absolute. And then we have the order, because everything is ordered and tied to the same laws, the same order. The same order that you find in an atom, you find it in the planets and everywhere. And then the fifth one, which was, I think, I don't understand what disengagedness means really. He said tajarrud. Tajarrud is abstraction. Like if we have a concept of human being, the concept of human being, we have this concept of, or this power of abstraction. So when we say a human being, all kinds of human beings are included in that. And he gives the example of the fish. The fish can be tiny, can be huge. It is a fish. That's the power of abstraction. To again help us understand how we have this concept where everything is included in that one word, the concept. Everything of all kinds of fishes. We don't say no, but this fish is different, so it's not a fish. SubhanAllah, we have this, I always have been amazed by our, this ability to abstract things. And we can use it to understand divine power. And the sixth one is the obedience. And the sixth one is very important because it looks directly, that's why it's left at the end. The others were all to get us ready for this, the mystery of obedience to the divine command. So what we see as laws, this is Imam Nursi, rahimahullah, in other places before the 29th word, actually in the words, in the 15th words, and etc. He talks about how what we see as laws are actually the reflection of the divine command, be and it is. So this is important because if it is, the creation is be and everything is, because everything obeys the same command. I mean, if you have in a room 1 person or 100 people, if you say something, they will all hear it. If they all have agreed to do what you want, or let's say you are in a mosque, if everyone is there to pray, when the imam says Allahu Akbar, everyone stands up. And then Allahu Akbar, everyone bows down. Because they have an agreement to follow that word. And the imam doesn't have to say, oh, today the mosque is full, what am I going to do? No, he says the same word. And it reaches everyone in the same way. And everyone, their obedience, which is, again, all these things are describing the malakuti side of things, because it is transparent or reflective, because it is responsive, because it is it follows order, because of all the 6 mysteries. Be and everything is. And this is not only obedience is important for us in our personal life, it's about us following the rest of the creation and obeying the divine command. Here, the divine command is not only the divine command in the Sharia Qur'aniya, in the Quran, but the Sharia Takwiniya, in the Sharia of creation. The creation is also God's laws and God's commands. So following both, that's why the wisdom we gain from the Quran is going to transform us in the way we interact with the world. And for instance, interacting with nature, not how do you say, not exploiting and harming the rest of the creation is part of it. It will be to the extent that we obey the divine command in the Quran and in the creation, which is, the creation is also a Quran. Everything is also an ayah, just like in the Quran. So the parallel reading becomes a parallel living, and it becomes, our life starts being more and more complete. And we will start living more from Malakut. Our questions about the world, especially problems of evil, will change, because how we perceive it and how things happen in our life will be different, or at least we will perceive them differently. Here we say God creates, but in our personal life, we perceive things as happening. And sometimes we're overwhelmed by some events because we are not present with this divine power that is everywhere, in everything, small and big. There is no small and big for that power from the Malakut side of things. And the Ruh, that's what it needs. Anything else doesn't make sense to the Ruh. It doesn't bring tranquility because there is still anxiety. If there is a power that something bigger is going to stop it, it means this power is limited. And if it is limited, it cannot have the power of being it is. So we cannot prostrate to that power. The Ruh cannot find tranquility. That's why it's this reality is important not only for Iman, but Iman is very important because when there is no Iman, there will be Iman means the Tawheed of everything. There will be shirk creeping in, and shirk is dhulmun azim to ourselves and to everything around us. Because when I am anxious about things, about event, that anxiety is going to feed the collective anxiety and vice versa. If there is peace and there is prayer and there is connection to divine power, that dua is going to be more sincere in the sense of ikhlas, in the sense of 100% God, 100% I trust. And so only when I trust in God, I can, how do you say, leave everyone else and everything else to his protection, because I cannot protect anyone. And then we are not, when we are in the horizontal mulk, stuck in the mulk side, it's all about I don't have the power, therefore I'm helpless. The other one has the power, therefore I am the victim. Everyone can be the victim, and we're stuck forever there. But if there is, if we can go beyond this, just remember the history of how Islam started. There were two huge empires that time, the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire. And where Islam started, there was nothing. It was like the desert. Allah like made it in a place where it was the desert. They didn't have like anything. They were not part of those two empires. And very quickly, it became a civilization on its own. And it changed the whole world. It changed the other empires. And common sense that is stuck in the horizontal, that is stuck in the mulk, will say, if they saw that happening like at the very beginning, it will either die or this message will stay here, very local. But because people believed in, and because it is haqq, and because it is tied to this all-encompassing power, to divine will. It's not about what I can do or can't do, what I want or don't want. It's about divine will and divine power. And with that surrender, they surrendered, like when we talked about Yusuf alayhi salam, there is this surrender, this obedience and surrender to divine will, to divine, because we trust in his wisdom, in his power and his wisdom and his compassion. The divine power is like the first, because otherwise we feel like, yeah, he could be very wise and very compassionate, which we need the most, the compassion part. But if he doesn't have the power, it feels like we're still not sure, we're not certain, we cannot totally trust. Now, when we have these ways of contemplating and reflecting on the creation, the malakut side of things in our life and in the world, this is a huge, it can create a huge breakthrough. Of course, always I add this, we need these teachings, and at the same time, we need to make the choice, the intention, the choice, and renew that choice, make the decision to, however, even if it's not like, how do you say, we're not going very fast, we're not very good at it, but the istiqama, our direction in life is to surrender to divine will, to trust again and again. If I'm not trusting, then it means there is a weakness in my belief in God. It means I don't know God as He is. It means go back. I need more to work more on my shahada, because it's everywhere. I'm not paying attention. So here, not only we are shown all the way to pay attention, and that's what the teachings of the Quran is all about. And so we need the teaching, and we need the willingness and the decision, the intention to follow this teaching day in, day out. This is our life. How do you say? This is our career. This is what we are here for. Everything else we are doing in the world is to part of this, not apart from it. It's not an alternative. It's not this and that. That, whatever we are doing, you're a medical doctor. When you are a medical doctor, what you are doing is, again, reflecting on divine power, on divine compassion, on the beautiful names of God, to increase our iman, to increase our trust, tawakkul, and obedience and surrender. Surrender, surrender, surrender. Everything starts with surrender, inshallah.
Jazakallah, Dr. Yamina. That was a great summary of what we've been up to, and also good intention setting, inshallah, for what we want to do with the rest of the session and the rest of the halakas. If anyone would like to share anything, go ahead, and if not, we will start reading the last part of the third fundamental point.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Walaikum.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Yamina. Jazakallah khair for starting us off in the panel. Just everything that Dr. Yamina just said really was very just mind-blowing and sort of shattering old concepts. No matter how many times I hear it, it's such a great reminder, which is the Quran, subhanAllah, the one who made us, because he says it all the time. This is a reminder, this is a reminder. And it's so important to gather weekly to be reminded, because the pace of everything just seems so fast and so chaotic. And we allow that pace to dictate our way of being, which then is forgetful. And then we are acting from that place of doing things without any place of centrality that is the main powerhouse or the eye of how to see everything, and operating from an inner place of insight and calmness and guidance and inspiration. and peace. She started off by saying that, like the path, reassurance. And so when she said, this is our main career, everything else is not apart from this, it's actually a part of our career, meaning this worldview or this way of beginning to see God in everything, to see the truth of the physicalities that are operating around us. We think that the matter, the things happening are of themselves powerful or are of themselves doers. And it's so easy to think that way because everyone's choosing horrific choices. And then I fall into that trap of seeing people's choices. And then she said it about free will, like free will is such a decimal of the reality. It seems like 99% of the picture. Like, look what he just chose. Oh no, the whole world is about to end. Like, and it seems like that because we're giving people, imagine, I want to say 100%. Yeah, not even, there's no space for God's operation because we're really believing, let me speak for myself. I'm really believing that when you see someone do an action, that it's, and then the action has a chain reaction. It's so easy to get caught in that trap. So to have this renewal every single halakha once a week is the bare minimum for me. So Jazakallah kul khair, Dr. Yumna, to check ourselves, because are we really operating from a place where cultivating the roots of this worldview in such a way that I am so firmly planted, like the trunk of a tree, in this reality, like even if it's a little bit every day, but it's consistent and it's every day that I'm choosing to renew, even when we make mistakes, am I seeing that this is my true career? And I like that word because everybody knows and is so career oriented, especially in the West, right? Like we are people that serve jobs. And then we become, slaves of that in simple form. Dr. Ali says it all the time. So this is a very important reminder that Dr. Yamina just shared. I had to sit down. I was like doing something and I was just like, wow, look at us. Look at us. It's really not simple at all. And I'm so grateful to hear it. And it hits me like, when something hits you so hard every time, like it takes your breath away. Because it's profound and I don't hear it anytime else in my week, not from any other lectures that I'm listening to or any other speakers that I'm listening to. This is our only career, is to really hone in on this study and to learn how to see the truth of ourselves, this immortal soul, the eternal nature of the doings. Like there's a hidden hand operating everything with wisdom that we don't see. And now the resurrection. So I'll pause there. I just wanted to really simmer with what she just said before we jump into something else, because it's so real and it's so deep and it's so profound. And if somebody sat down with me once a week, Jazakallah kulla khair, Dr. Yamina, may Allah grant you afiyah, to keep telling us this every single week, it's really not enough. It's one of the things that has to go on a post-it. Like our purpose is not to be mothers, workers, wives, husbands, if there's any men on the call. We have a single responsibility to be aware of God as our career and how he's acting in my desire to do this and my desire to do this next, and how he's operating in this thing just happened. And it's so needy of devoted training that may we renew our intention to devote to this training.
Thank you, Sarah, as always. Okay, so without further ado, I think we can get started. And maybe we'll stop after reading this and not get into the fourth fundamental point, most likely. Okay, inshallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Result and summary of the third fundamental point. Since pre-eternal power is infinite, and it is the inherent necessary quality of the most pure and holy essence, and since the stainless, veilless inner aspect of everything is turned to it and faces it, and is in balance with respect to contingency, which consists of the equal possibility of being and not being, and since this inner face is obedient to the order of creation and the divine laws of the universe, which form the greater Sharia, the Sharia of creation, and it is disengaged from and free of obstacles and different characteristics, certainly, like the smallest thing, the greatest cannot resist that power, nor expect more from it than the smallest. In which case, the raising to life of all beings with spirits at the resurrection is not more difficult for divine power than raising a fly to life in the spring. Thus, the decree of your creation and your resurrection is but like a single soul. Thus, the decree of this verse is no exaggeration. It is true and correct. And our claim that the agent possesses the power has been proved true in decisive fashion. There is nothing to hinder it in this respect. It's a great summary. So I'll just highlight, the paragraph is like one sentence. But we can start here. Since pre-eternal power is infinite and it is inherent, it is the inherent necessary quality of the most pure and holy essence. Certainly, like the smallest thing, the greatest cannot resist that power, nor expect more from it than the smallest. So if you guys remember at the beginning of the second aim, we had certain questions and claims about resurrection that we are trying to resolve through these fundamental points. So one of the questions was to the claim that yes, there will be a full resurrection of everything here once it's been destroyed, I guess. One of the questions was, can whoever is going to do that resurrection actually have the power to do that thing? Because we may see that, destruction is easy, but bringing back to life could be hard. It could be too much if we think about raising to life all beings with spirits at the resurrection. So we should kind of look back at everything we've read and then the summary as answering this doubt or answering this question. Can the agent actually do it? Like, do they have the power to do such a thing? And so up till this point, we have read different reasons why pre-eternal power with all its aspects and dimensions shows us that actually what is big and unimaginable in our imagination, this raising to life of all beings with spirits at the resurrection, is in fact no different than raising a fly to life in the spring. So I will stop there and I'll hand it over to Sarah. And if you guys have any questions about this specific part, any clarifications, reflections, go ahead.
Thank you, Nurbanu. I always like process his language very slowly. So I'm still in the first sentence. Because I know he's very careful about how he says things. And so I'm pausing with, and since the stainless, and he said this in the last 2 weeks, the same sort of language, the stainless, veilless inner aspect of everything. Okay, imagine now he's seeing the world this way. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but my view of things is very much so stained and veiled. Very much so. And he uses the names most pure and holy essence. I don't know, Dr. Yamina, is that Qudus is he's talking about? Or do you know?
Aqdas.
Mm.
So it's from Qudus, yeah. Most holy. Like Qudus, holy, most holy. And
Because we talked about infinite power, but now it's pure, stainless, veilless. And there's a huge shift from like going outside and looking at everything as power, power, power. That was easy for me. And now pure with regard, for me, pure, I can see the pure in like water. Okay, yeah, when I'm doing the dishes, okay, yeah, I need to purify because things need to be pure. But now the stainless, veilless inner aspect of everything. He saw something, he felt something, and he put it in words here. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's pause. Because I can mentally like get what he's trying to say. But I'm like, how did you, like, go ahead, Dr. Yamin. I know you were going to say something.
Oh, just the inner aspect, let's remember that means Malakut. The original is Malakut. The Malakut side of everything that is stainless and veilless in everything is turned to it. It looks to it. It is responsive to it, obedient to it.
Mm-hmm. It's so nice. Wallahi, that just the wording is so freeing for me to hear that, because I'm rewinding my day and the faces that I saw and the pictures that I seen, everything, almost everything I interacted today was through a very stained, burdensome veil that just was dark. It was this person did this, and then the news was like this, and there was no pure meaning side. So if I pause and review to make Sidq confirm the truth of the summary of his third fundamental point. So there's the first part is the purity of the Malakuti side, and the second part seems like balance with regard to contingency, which I looked it up to figure out. regards to the future, or I'm not really sure what he means by that. But so we'll go there next. The first part, if I go back and rewind my day, oh my God, astaghfirullah. Just the one who was telling me about this situation and how somebody left a baby and blah, blah, blah. It was just, oh my God. So the malakuti side would be the meaning side, is what we're saying is like, as you know, the news is unfolding, which I know many people on this call are very much so being pulled by, or the certain events in our lives which pull us. And I mean, like, the pulling voice is constantly talking to us about coloring or staining the situation in some way that's not stainless and pure and luminous. And so to get to this Quds, like this pure way of understanding the meaning, I suppose, would be to weigh my feelings, right, Dr. Yamina, because it's my feelings that are going to stain it. I'm the viewer, I'm the one who's receiving. So really, the stain is either in my lens, my heart's lens, or not. I guess that's what would make it stainless, because if my heart, which is receiving the feelings, right? The malakuti side is the angels are constantly communicating with me feelings. So a mother with a 10-day-old that I never met comes over with a tiny little human, is absolutely angelic, and the father disappeared and blah, 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 and la, la, la. And I'm just like, so hurt. Like, how could this happen?
You're
But in
not making
reality,
it up, though. We all
Hmm?
agree. And you are not making up the ugliness. The mulk side has ugliness and beauty. Otherwise, we will have no sense of beauty. If we didn't have, there was no ugliness. But it only shows that we're stuck in the mulk.
yes.
The very fact that we all agree and we are all appalled by the ugliness we see, the injustice we see, is already pointing us and urging us and pulling us to look at the Malakut.
Yes, and to take that further, because last week we were ending on that everything is his mulk, or maybe that was 2 weeks ago. So then the malakuti side, the veilless, stainless, I'm asking for my own heart work, would come down to my feelings. How am I viewing this? Because if I'm owning them, like you said 2 weeks ago, then that's me trying to own his mulk of the feelings, as opposed to allowing the feelings to be the veilless, stainless mirror of his pure love, of his pure care, which then makes the mulk side that much uglier, because there is something inside so pure and so loving and so wonderful and so great that when it sees the total contrast, it's absolutely disgusted. But I think we get stuck, or I get stuck, and that is so disgusting.
And that's why
Mhm.
people who live from the mulk, from the ruh, cannot be attached to the worldly, because the worldly is not something likable. I mean, it's something that it doesn't mean that there is nothing likable in it. It's la'bun wa lahwun wa zinatun. So there is, and we have to go through it in order to get to the malakut. So, however, it's otherwise we would be stuck in it even when we witness or experience the ugliness. We still, because we have nothing else to hold on. And there will be lots of fear, because what we are holding on, forget about the ugliness, the fact that it is perishing, even when it is beautiful, it's unsettling. But here, because it is perishing, and because this is only a tiny little square of the big picture of reality, the ugliness now starts receding, because there is something much bigger. And this ugliness doesn't last. and it's only a small part of what's going on. So the perspective, when we change our perception, the perspective also changes. When we come back from the Malakut and look at the Mulk again, we're not going to look at it in the same way, because it's the same, but it's one thing if this is all my life. It's a different thing if this is only a short period of it. And not only it's only a short period, but it has meaning. It's not happening haphazardly without any meaning, and there is no end to it, and no, how do you say, no consequences. So the ugliness starts highlighting the beauty. The injustice makes us long and appreciate the justice more. And so it starts fulfilling its the purpose of its creation. And also it makes us take action inwardly and outwardly.
Yes, and the way he put it was like the inner aspect of everything is turned to it as though and faces it. So in every single thing, even in the ugly, from what I understand from that little part of what he's sharing about how he views the world, is in every single thing, there's a stainless, and I love the word stainless. I mean, even if you
The
think of
Mulk
like the
side
stainless
of
steel.
everything is, because he explained it before in another way when he was saying in the second matter, when he was saying that it's beyond opposites, it's beyond less or more than this.
Mhm.
It's just, it looks to goodness and it is goodness. Mulk, Malakut.
Mhm.
In the
Mhm.
mulk, ugliness doesn't exist on its own. We are comparing it to less ugly, more beautiful, less just, more. So those are all script. When we start reading the script itself becomes secondary. They are all pointing to the Malakut, which is the permanent reality. Everything else is impermanent. However much it has an effect on us, it only affects us because affecting us is part of the deal. But how it is affecting us, we don't, how do you say, process it. And so we get stuck there. We can get stuck in helplessness, in anger, in all these kind of things for years if we don't process them, if we don't listen to what they have to say and how they are uplifting us to the Malakut that we are longing for and looking for.
Mhm. And so this pure inner vein, stainless, veilless inner aspect of everything that's turned to and faces at all times the most pure and holy essence is not only my feelings, like my feelings are included in that, right? Because the angels are communicating with us our feelings, which the feelings themselves are speaking to that eternal voice that we spoke about that says we're made to love perfection, we're made to love justice. So there's that longing that you were referring to, which, like you said, then it's made to dislike the injustice, it's made to dislike. So instead of focusing on the made to dislike part, we use that to hone in on the longing voice. Like it's the dislike points to the contrast of what it's made to love. And if we stop and focus there, the Malakuti side, Malakut, there's this angelic meaning which discloses the names of God there for me. So to focus on the names of God that are reverberating, and yani, the more intense the situation, I feel like the louder this ringing is inside of this message. And if we're not very subtle and delicate with being aware of this ringing, this reverberating alarm going off that says in the if there's something beautiful, then there's the stainless veilless that says, wow, incredible, amazing, perfect. And these are all his names. Something is saying, look at the perfect one, look at the amazing one. At the same time, the ugly things that are happening also have a stainless, veilless inner aspect that points to the most pure and holy essence. Because when it happens, the reverberation is still just as loud, but it's saying, we need this incredible justice. We need this perfect passion. We need this perfect compassion, which awakens, like we were saying all the past weeks, it awakens this intense need, which is the purpose of existence, right? Like to awaken us to who we really are, this intense need for eternity. And not just eternity, but the eternal one, whose every single attribute and quality is perfect and eternal. And anything less than that, like focusing on the mulk side, like you were saying, is absolute torture and suffocation to our ruh. It can't, no wonder why it feels so burdened, because it hates the ugly and needs to be in dhikr. It needs to be in a constant state of dhikr, remembrance, recalling the beautiful one, recalling the names of God in order to feel at rest. Does that clarify everything for everybody? That was very clarifying for me. Jazakillah khair, Dr. Yamina. If we want to add anything to that, feel free. Otherwise, we can go to the contingency part and see how we can practically break that down as well. Okay. And is in balance with respect to contingency. I guess I was just confused of what he meant by contingency, Dr. Yamina.
He explains it. Contingency means the equal possibility of being and non-being. I'm a contingent being. It means I was not in the world at one point of time, and the world was still going on. And one day I will leave, the world will still carry on. And everything, all created beings are contingent, except for the necessary being, God, without whom there would be no existence. So that's what contingency means. Whether it is or it is not, it's equal. The possibility of being or not being is equal.
Okay, so like that, being dependent on its existence in every moment. Does that aligns with that?
He's talking about the balance, which one of the comparisons was about balance. Don't remember which one it was.
Oh, the third comparison. Okay.
If something is, whether it happens or it doesn't, it exists or it doesn't exist, is equal as far as it is concerned, it means there needs a power to bring it into existence and to keep it. So it is talking about or looking to divine power. He's just summarizing all the points he went through.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And since this interface is obedience, this interface is obedient to the order of creation and the divine laws of the universe, which form the greater Sharia. The Sharia of creation, is that Sunnatullah?
It's probably Sharia. شريعة فطرية فطرية شريعة شريعة فطرية الكبرى, the great.
Which one was the greater one?
The greater Sharia of creation, فطرية, fatara, it's a creation in a certain fitra. It's a specific word for creation.
Oh, they're the same. The greater Sharia, the Sharia of creation. I get it. Okay. Yeah, which makes sense because everything is following his order. So he's talking about the way everything is made. And it's disengaged from and free of obstacles and different characteristics. Meaning it's all referring back to his, all obeying his divine will. Certainly, like the smallest thing, the greatest cannot resist that power. That's so liberating, Marie. Like the smallest thing, the greatest cannot resist that power, nor expect more from it than the smallest, in which case the raising to life of all beings with spirits at the resurrection is not more difficult for divine power than raising a fly to life in the spring.
And this is an
Thus
ayah. ما خلقكم ولا بعثكم إلا كنفس واحدة. It's an ayah of the Quran that he was mentioned at the beginning. All of everything and one single being is the same for God. Be and it is. This is something to understand and then contemplate and reflect interactively with the creation, within the creation, observe, experience. And the more we experience, the more we reflect, the more we internalize it, the more we feel that the tranquility of, we are not at the mercy of any power, anything other than the one powerful one. So we only obey him, we only trust him, we only follow his guidance. Nothing else can touch us without his will. And so whether it looks bad or good, whatever comes from him, if without realizing I've done something, that's how something bad happened to me, still I can make istighfar, and the result, I may have done something, but it was God's will. If I surrender to God's will, it will be transformed into goodness in this world. And what matters the most is in the next, because in this world, what we are talking about, this life that we are so immersed in, so attached to, is only the flowing now. The moment I say now, it's not there anymore. If only we could reflect on how transient it is. There is only one way to read the ayats truly in our life, is to be accepting and totally aware and accepting of the transience. We may forget, but we forget, we make istighfar and back to. We usually forget because it seems this is the reality, but this is not the reality. This is only the mulk side of the reality, the little, how do you say, tip of the iceberg. The whole iceberg is the malakut. It's like saying we are the body, the bones and flesh and bones. No, flesh and bones is part of who we are, but who we are is endless. The soul, when you know, how can you describe a friend or someone you know, not only how they look, especially if you have a child, they keep changing, but the real being there is something else. And this is how we need to start interacting with ourselves, with the world first, and it's going to happen at the same time, and with ourselves. And so the worldly life will not have the same crushing effect that it has over us now, because whether when it is positive also, we worship it, we love it so much, and we hold on to it because we don't want it to leave, but it does leave, and if it doesn't leave us, we live it. So in any case, we need to be grounded in the reality, the malakut, the truth of this world, and everything else, the mulk, is constantly leaving, constantly flowing. And its flow is beautiful. But if we think it's here to stay, then it becomes a huge burden that we cannot deal with, because we are not created for that, and because that's not the true. That's not the reality. So slowly start with small steps and make peace with who we are, with the reality, and very quickly we'll find out that all our fears are based on something that is not out there. They are all made up because they are based on a totally distorted perception of the reality. And we will start finding that true peace that we all long for. ألا بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب.
Jazakallah khair. That was so concise and true and beautiful and reassuring, alhamdulillah. Truly, to come to this conclusion, and I love the way he summarized it here. It was just easier for me to digest than each mystery. I think that this was a nice way to put it all together. It is very liberating to remember that everything is necessarily subdued to a single power, and that's the one, the only one that we are dependent on, nourished by, and it just cancels, right? It totally negates and cancels all of those fears out there about all of this so-called chaos that seems to have all this so-called power, and all of my so-called fears and worries and apprehensions, as though anything is happening without being subdued. I like what he said, cannot resist that power. So I agree. It's something that we need to pause with, because it's one thing to intellectually digest it, and it's a totally different, elevating experience to feel liberated, relieved, to feel relieved by this reality, like to feel our, and this is right, it would come back to how we feel. If we've truly digested the internalized the truth of this, then our hearts could rest and we would feel more relieved and less tense or squeezed, maybe, of as the things are happening. And so I wanted to kind of pause with a homework, because we've been talking about the Malakut side for so long. He beautifully summarized it in this point. So I know we've talked a lot about our feelings. I'm wondering, Dr. Yamina, if let's say the shortcut throughout the day when interacting with small chaotic human beings, or a chaotic work day, or a very busy to-do list, which can be easy to sort of get swept off of your feet from running to this, to this, to this, to this. I'm wondering if pausing to just check in with your feelings and the needs there, because I know you always say needs connect us to the divine names, can be like a shortcut to bring us to the stainless, perfect, veilless aspect of the most pure. Because in every moment that I think about today, if I would have just stopped to check in on how I was feeling instead of letting that feeling totally choke me to death, I could have probably found relief there instead of feeling so squeezed amidst all of the chaotic things that were happening back to back to back to back. So I'm wondering if an easy way to reorient to the Qibla, right? Reorient to the most pure would be to just pause, and maybe even, I know we do like hands on our chest or just hands on, and just feel what we're feeling. Notice, just to become aware of the feeling, which points us to a need, and the need will always connect us to a name. So the need itself is longing for, or speaking of, an eternal, need, an eternal name that's connected there. And I'm wondering if that would be helpful. And istighfar, Ziba says in the chat, istighfar can be a turning point in our perception or observation. Istighfar is the pause. So Dr. Yamina, does that seem like a good way?
Conscious istighfar is a good way. Yeah.
No, I mean like the feelings and the needs part, like to come back to the stainless, veilless malakut meaning of the happenings, like to pause in the chaotic day.
Yes, if we are allocating some time to do it more deeply, otherwise we'll have nothing to remember, to fall back on. But still, if you can do it, it's really good. People usually stop doing it because each time it feels like we're forcing ourselves. We're not convinced inside, or we have different feelings and beliefs fighting each other, contradicting each other. I'm saying it's all beautiful, but part of me, a stronger part of me that have been feeding for years, is saying, what do you mean? Look, where is the evidence? So that's why if someone can do it, even without evidence, eventually there will be a breakthrough. But because we are more impatient, we live in a culture where we don't do that, it'll be harder. So if you do that, it's very good. At the same time, have like once or twice a week where you actually do take half an hour, 20 minutes to do a deeper work. So the malakut of your belief is backed up with evidence. You will feel that, yes, this is true. Part of you will say, no, no, no. You say, yes, but I know I have the evidence. So it'll be easier to shut that voice down and not take it seriously, because you know deep down now that, yes, that voice is just repeating things because of habit, but I have had experiences where that is not true. So, inshallah, bismillah. And
So
help each other, remind each other, because consistency is what, it's again a law of creation. If we do something, even if it's 2-3 times a day, or every time we are going to pray, we're going to make wudu. But if we do it daily, constantly, Allah definitely will give us endless barakah, endless blessings. But if we do it and then stop, then we say nothing happened. No, you stopped. It's like you didn't wait enough.
And so by the inner, so I like that. That's a good reminder. So pausing to notice your feelings and what you need, or pausing to make a conscious istighfar for that negative perception, because what Dr. Yamina said, because the false beliefs have a stronger charge, or they're more repeated more often, that it overpowers the voice of truth or the voice of inspiration inside. So in order to strengthen that voice of inspiration inside, so it becomes our anchor, so it becomes more a stabilizer, so we don't stray too far, right? And Dr. Yamina always uses the metaphor of the anchor. It's a beautiful imagery. We have to also include deeper contemplative work, which we've done a lot through our breath. And I'm wondering, Dr. Yamina, if we can just get clarity on that. So by the deeper work, and the deeper work would help us strengthen the believing voice, the voice of inspiration, the voice of guidance. And inshallah, the more anchored that becomes, like I can really feel and like true awe and just sit there and be in total awe more often, then that would help me bounce back from the and let go of the pulling voice or the chaotic voice, the because we're nurturing it more deeply. It's, you know, we have to give it more, like a full charge at least once a day. And so by that full deep charge, by that full, you know, a deeper contemplative work that we use through the breath to slow down, that we use with the breath to slow down, and we'll end here. Do we mean to pause with just noticing and being in awe of the sustainer through our breath, and then just learning to quiet that voice that tries to distract us? Like when we meditate, there's a pulling voice, and everyone always says in all the mindfulness activities to just notice and come back to the center breath, to come back to the center dhikr. And is that the way, one of the ways, right? Because you can contemplate for 20 minutes on the breath and notice how beautifully it's sustained, and notice how quickly your mind tries to pull you out of it, or the pulling voice, we'll call it. Or also, I suppose, then we can also take that to deeper contemplative work through, like, when we're drinking something and just milking the awe there, at least one moment of quietude. Does that sound like the path to what we were saying to do?
I think she might have left, maybe.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Well, so then we'll pause with that, because we know that she often encourages us with that. I want to also read Sarah's comments. So not only Ziba said to pause and make istighfar, to reorient. It's a great reminder, Jazakillah khair, Ziba. And also Sarah mentioned and recentering, which I like that word, to recenter with God's name, and tadabbur, or contemplation on the Quran and the ayats inside and outside, which sounds like exactly what we were talking about. Ameen. Does anybody want to add? We'll pause right there for questions or comments before we close. Anyone?
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Sarah here. So thank you, Sarah, for you and Nurvana also having a back and forth, and Dr. Yamina, of course, um, expounding on the tafsir, the wording by Imam Nursery. My yeah, understanding of this particular paragraph, I think, is from the lived experience when we are witnessing everything, and how much patience and fortitude and istiqama and hopefulness we have to have, as well as when we are facing um, a sense of uncertainty, as well as knowing, having a hunch feeling that this can be uh, happening in terms of inner resolve to accept that in divine will we can expect anything good, or more of a trial, which seemingly can be a trial, but hence this contingency, as Dr. Gamina explained, makes more sense, because we are at the same time either are alive or are walking dust and passing away. So even though we have not transitioned into death, but we are going towards it. So it's like a present continuous. And when we look around with Gaza and other places in the world, wherever there is persecution, oppression, and injustice, um, people with good hearts and good souls, no matter if they are religious or not, um, or from Islam or not, as their faith, they will feel it's very palpable, the spiritual disturbance that a person, a human being, will feel. And so I think maybe for next session, when we have the gathering, inshallah, talking about the fundamental points, it'll be nice to know how we balance the two realities, how we compartmentalize them in our brain. Because when we think about our cognition of this reality, our ruh is still a superlative. Because if the ruh is strong, which is why we put the emphasis on remembering Allah and remembering Allah's words in Quran, and also recognizing, paying attention, as well as being more aware of our choices and decisions, because we know that this here is not forever. And so this whole idea about resurrection, which was back then also questioned about by pagans or people who did not believe Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and other prophets, they always told back that we are already only saying what we know of what God said, which is resurrection is easy for him. Whoever put us together, he can put us back together again. So this dual reality, and holding it in our heart and mind, and still in fact, because of it, having strong belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, good yaqeen, strong yaqeen, sure faith. I think that's what I see is the gist of this summary in the third point. And Jazakallah khair.
Thank you, Saira. I would be curious to hear Dr. Yamina's response, but I love what you said about the contingency and the existence being so subtle. Like I remember Nursi also mentioning like it flickers in and out of existence. We think we're alive and stable, but in reality, we're like, I like what you said. It's very, and if we saw ourselves like that, it would be much easier to accept the transience of everything. If we saw ourselves like particles blinking in and out of existence, we are literally just a breath. We are a flashing breath that's not guaranteed the next moment.
Yeah.
However, the dual reality thing is, I would pause with that, because what we're learning is that this is not the reality. This world is far from anything. The mulk are choices being made, but what we're seeing is like an iceberg, the tip of an iceberg. It's not the reality at all. In fact, the reality, which is the bottom of the iceberg, has nothing to do with what we see. It's so much more. It's not a dual reality. That the fact that we perceive it as a dual reality just points to our need to focus on what's under the iceberg. because we have
Yeah.
no grip of that or no insight of that, no vision of that, no reality of that, no taste of that, no inner experience of that, because we're not doing the deeper meditative work, that we are
Mhm.
we see the whole iceberg as being what we see on camera or what we see in person, as though
Visible.
that is 99% of the truth, and it's actually a sliver.
Mhm.
All of his names are the only reality, which are all under the iceberg. The angels, the resurrection, the transience. This is the reality. So there's really
Yeah.
no dual reality. That duality is a false perception, I think, of how we view ourselves. And Dr. Yamina
Mhm.
always says, if you view yourself as this, stable, constant being, then everything out there looks like a stable, constant being. But I'm
Mhm.
learning that there's an unseen realm, but that unseen realm doesn't seem like a reality. So therefore, now I have a dual reality because I think, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
I
think it
remember
is
Dr.
that.
Yamina and Dr. Ali
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
it a lot, that the whole concept
yeah.
of a dual reality is just points to our kind of had where we are right now in our development, and we are in development. I know
Mhm.
we're over time and I want to respect people's time. So let's maybe pause, maybe if you can pose a question in the contemplation group, Zaira, I think that'd be a
Yes,
good
I
place
will.
to break
Yeah,
it
yeah.
down.
Yeah,
That would be
yeah.
nice because we need to revive that group. And
Yeah.
Jazakumullah khair. I'm sorry, Nurbanu, for going
Jazakallah.
7 minutes over. I'm not as good with time management as you are. Sorry. Jazakumullah khair. Amin, Saira, Randa,
Wassalam,
Dr.
everybody.
Yumina, and Receive, and Nurbanu. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. أو سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. وألف ألف صلاة وألف ألف سلام عليك يا رسول الله بسر سورة الفاتحة.